It is Marianne Bailey with the Hip Senior Podcast Book Edition. Today we are with Deborah Shouse, and we are talking about the book Love in the Land of Dementia. Deborah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you for being with us. So, Love in the Land of Dementia. What is this book about?
This is the journey I took with my mom when she was living with dementia, and with my dad, and with myself. So when my mom started exhibiting signs of cognitive impairment, and I was very upset about it, and I was a writer. I am a writer. So I started just documenting all the things that me and my family were going through. And I had just wrote a series of essays about our journey. And at some point, my writing partners said to me, "You are writing a book," which I had no intention of writing, but that's what I was doing. And I was very lucky because I got to read some of the essays to my mom while she could still understand them and get her blessing.
Oh, that's sweet.
So the whole point, it's called, that subtitle is Finding Hope in the Caregiver's Journey. And that is my goal with this book. That at some point after I got done with my grieving and worrying and confusion, I thought I want to stay connected with my mom through the whole journey. And I want to figure out what's good about this and look for the good things. And so that's what I did. And that's an important part of the book, is just noticing what is good about this. Definitely it's different. We're learning to communicate differently. We're learning to accept each other as we are. And yet we still maintain a connection, not our usual connection, but a connection that was equally satisfying, even though it was different. And so that's what I wanted to find for myself. And then I wanted to share with other care partners, because it's such a complicated journey. It's filled with loss, and yet it's also filled with love and creativity and connect.
You said the word grieving, that really stuck out at me. And I know everybody handles relationships with their parents, relationships with their mothers, especially. That is sometimes an interesting relationship. We'll move it that way. It's always, some people have this amazing relationship with their mothers. Others have love-hate relationships. Some people handle emotions much differently than others. Everybody's different. Do you feel that when somebody is told your mother has dementia or Alzheimer's, do you think that everybody grieves at some point before their death? Do you think they grieve the relationship that they used to have, even if it hasn't come full circle, full-blown dementia? You know what I mean? Do you think everybody grieves to a certain extent for that?
I don't know about everybody, but I certainly think it's a common thing to mourn the parts of your communication and connection that have to change. Because at some point, my mom didn't know who I was. That is a very hard moment, I think, for everybody. And yet she still smiled at me, and she knew I was somebody she liked.
You were familiar, right?
I was familiar. At some point, my mom couldn't talk in a complete sentence. But instead of that, we had a more physical connection. We would hold hands, gaze into each other's eyes. So we never held hands when my mom was in her rational mind, because my mom was very rational. She was a sweet, but also she had a lot of rules person. So all those rules went away. Her playful nature came out. Of course, everybody is so different on this journey, but that was mine. And so I got to see a part of my mom I hadn't seen before, and to meet her there. So it was very growthful for me, and I learned a lot. And that's part of the spirituality of this journey. If you want to stay connected with the person you love, you have to slow down. You have to do one thing at a time. You have to be creative in the way you're going to connect. And all those are wonderful gifts that we get when we are willing to do that.
I see a lot of people whose parents have dementia really struggling, like you just said, finding ways to connect of even during the day, like keeping their parent entertained because one thing that you would think would hold zero interest will keep them occupied for hours, but the things that they normally loved, maybe 5 minutes. And so I imagine that trying to get through a day in itself can just be challenging, let alone the rest of a lifetime. So thank you so much for writing this book. I haven't read it yet, I'll be honest, but I am looking forward to reading it. I can't wait for you all to read it. Deborah, what is the one thought that you hope that when somebody puts this book down, that they will get out of this book?
You used the word that comes to me, which is the word hope, that there is hope, and that I'm hoping they will look at the person who has dementia that they love or remember that person in a way that is accepting and loving, and also look at themselves in that way. Because during this journey, we all made a bunch of mistakes because nobody knows what they're doing because things change so much. And
Right.
so to give yourselves a lot of love and credit for being present, and then to seek out ways that you can keep that connection going.
The other word that comes to me is giving yourself a lot of grace.
Yes.
And realizing that you may make a mistake today because, again, it changes on a daily, sometimes an hourly, sometimes a minute by minute basis. That, sometimes things catch us off guard and you may lose your cool or your temper or whatever. To recollect yourself and move forward and forgive yourself because, like I said, it's a tough job.
Yeah.
Deborah, thank you so much. I appreciate you being with us and telling us about your book.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you. Have a great day.